with a everything bagel focaccia stick and microgreens on it. This is a deviled egg that is filled with a pimento cheese deviled egg spread, and then topped with a beautiful edible flower. Vegetarian dish on the splattered plate that my crew, Chef Tracy, splattered for us. I hope you all enjoy it. Oyster dressing with duck confit. It is served in an oyster shell. It's being served on a bed of smoked salt, so we are getting that together for you, and I hope you all enjoy it. Donut that has been filled with banana pudding, and then topped with a banana and crushed or whole vanilla wafer. Thank you so much for coming again. You can't even know how much this means to me to have all of you come out and support me and this vision that I've had for so long. So thank you again.
Welcome everyone to the I Am Rodism podcast. We have a special guest in the building, all the way from Michigan originally. Dallas ISD Culinary art teacher. She's been a teacher at that high school for a little bit, and she's going to talk today about the culture of cooking, chefing, and also getting into the heritage and how it's being lost. So she's a chef. She actually just cooked for us today, and we're going to talk to her, and she's very fun and dynamic and everything. So I'm looking forward to her interview. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Roslind, a.k.a. Roslind Renee.
Thank you.
Okay, Rosie. Now, you actually just finished cooking a nice little dish for us. I don't even know what it was called, but it was like a pasta.
It's delicious.
With cheese.
Pasta yumminess.
Can you please kind of talk about what you just did a few minutes ago for us?
So what I made for you today was a brown butter and sage ravioli that was filled with yours, Roderick, was a cheese and herb filling, and the one that myself and Lisa had was a sausage and cheese ravioli, and it was garnished with edible flowers and a little bit of fried sage, and it was a simple butter sauce of just brown butter and sage.
Okay. I want to get more into that, but first, I want to get into who you are, what you do. So I want to get into your culinary school teacher, and for Dallas ISD, how long have you been doing that?
So I've been teaching culinary in Dallas ISD for almost 8 years.
8 years. And what made you get into doing that? Because at first you were a pastry.
So it's a long story.
That blink told it all.
It's a long story with a lot of winding roads and twists to it.
Yeah.
But the short version is a friend of mine, I was working in corporate America at the time. So I was a project manager. Well, actually workforce manager at that point. And she was getting her master's in education, and she said that she was going to start teaching at Dallas ISD and said that I should get into teaching. And I was like, no, I'm not teaching. My mom was in education, my aunt was in education, my great aunt was in education, my whole family has been in education. I don't think that teachers are valued and honored in a way that I would like to do. So no, I don't want to teach. She kept going.
But why did she keep going? Because she saw something in you maybe you didn't.
I guess. Okay. I mean, before I went into workforce and project management, my trajectory was to be a trainer.
Okay.
At this company, but I went left when I should have went right. Mm-hmm. So she was like, I said, the only way I would ever get into teaching is if I could teach culinary arts. I'm not teaching anything else. Mm-hmm. She's like, okay. Months went by. I'm doing my job. I'm like, yeah. And then she's like, hey, guess what? They're looking for a culinary teacher at this school, and I've been asked to find somebody. Submit your resume now.
Okay, universe.
Like, okay. Mm-hmm.
Did you already have a resume ready?
I always have a resume ready. You don't have to get ready when you stay ready.
Yeah.
So I sent off my resume, and next thing I knew, I got called in for an interview, and it was very surreal because I went for the interview, and apparently nobody knew who I was supposed to be interviewing with, what time the interview was. It was just nothing. Yeah. It was summertime. The lady had interviewed all day long and forgot she had an interview with me.
You were the last interview?
I was the last interview of the day, and she had forgotten. She had already left for the day.
Oh.
She left.
She left.
That means she already figured out who she's hiring. She left.
So she thought.
Right.
So I was just hanging out in the school. I met some other people, and next thing I know, then I finally get a call on my cell while I'm at the school, and then she's like, oh, she's very apologetic that she had forgotten. And I had, in the meantime, was just kind of talking with one of the teachers that was there and somebody else. And they were like, no, you should hire her. You need to hire her. And next thing I know, she's like, yeah, I'm really sorry I missed you. Do you want the job?
But who said they should hire you?
The people she was talking to.
The people I was just wanting.
Oh,
yeah.
The people you just met that day?
That day.
They said, hire. You made such an impact on them that they were like,
they wanted her to hire me.
Wow.
Right.
And she offered me the job. I was like, well, we haven't even interviewed or talked. Yeah. She was like, this is your interview. And I said, well, can I get a day or two to think about it?
To think about if you want the job that
I said that I wanted. Yes, that part.
That she was interviewing for.
But why would you, I'm just out of curiosity, why would you say that if that's what the job, the pay? Was that what you were concerned about? Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. I was concerned because it would be I was taking a salary cut at the time.
Makes sense.
And she's like, unfortunately, there's no negotiation. This is the pay structure. This is where it's at. And I was like, ugh. But I knew I was tired of corporate. I was tired of doing what I was doing. And I had literally 8 months earlier wrote down in my journal, Lord, I wanted a job where I could use my brain, use all my skills and talents, impact the world, and teach people.
Be careful what you ask for.
When they say be careful what you ask for, be very careful.
You just might get it.
Yeah.
And it may not come in the package you thought it was coming in. And so...
So when we talk to you, because I feel like you're very an impactful person, period. You know, at our HOA meetings and just getting to know you, you're a strong, impactful person. Even with your story now about the people you met in an hour, they were like, "Hey, hire her."
Yeah.
So it's good that you're doing something that you enjoy because you enjoy what you do, right?
Yes.
Better than corporate America. So it's like
I do.
When you enjoy something and plus you're impactful, it's like a double. It's like a gift for everybody almost because you're enjoying it. Yeah. Plus you're impactful already. So it's like you get to be impactful through your like your art and your food. I was going to ask you. You mentioned to me about people's heritages getting lost with food. Can you elaborate on that? You were talking about what heritages are.
So So a few months ago, I started a heritage dining series.
We like it.
And the dining series was meant to progress throughout a day's meal service, whichever way, from light bites all the way to a full course dinner. But during COVID, I started there was a lot of things that went on during that time period of 2019, 2020. And it just and you had so much time on your hands now to think and to really investigate things. And being a teacher, I really wanted to educate. And so I started thinking about all of the lost history, all of the lost traditions, and all of the lost knowledge that was not being passed down from one generation to another. And the way we commune the most is through food.
Yeah.
And when you're at a table, it doesn't matter your religious background, your political background, your social background, your economical background, or even your standing. Everything is level at a table. And food is the great unifier.
Yeah, we all got to eat.
You all have to eat, and you love everything. And so I felt like what better way to reach people and to talk to people. I'm not a person who is, out there on the front lines, picketing, or even though I grew up with people like that, I'm not very strong advocate in that kind of way, but I prefer to be a lot more quiet with it. And so I know that I can reach people through food. You might be far right on one area, but I bet you like these biscuits.
I was thinking while you were talking that I just thought about this right now, but if you're racist, you can't be racist and eat other people's food, right? Because then
No, yes, you can.
I guess you can. I mean, because you
think about it. I
guess you can. Yeah, you're
if
right.
you think about it, let's think about racism going all the way back to Jim Crow era. Forget Jim Crow. Let's go all the way back to slavery.
Right.
And who's cooking the food in the house?
That's true. That's true.
Who's raising the babies in the house?
Yeah, how does that even make sense?
You don't care how it gets done as long as it gets done.
Yeah.
And it tastes good. So this is the first time a lot of people were introduced to certain types of things.
Yeah.
Now, when you're the help, you got the scraps.
Right.
And so you wanted to make those scraps taste good by whatever means you could.
Right.
A lot of people of that time then hunted, fished, and foraged for other things to make their own food taste good because they only had the scraps. But in the big house, they had all of the good things. And so they would use all of that to their advantage to make something fully flavorful.
Yeah.
When you go back and you think about some of the first notable black chefs, we're talking Hercules, which I believe was was the Washington chef. Okay. And there's notability that Martha Washington has a lot of recipes, or there's some cookbooks to her credit, but you never ever heard of her cooking anything. This black man was in their kitchen, running their kitchen, making this food, but he didn't get the credit for it. The credit was given to someone else.
I guess it's kind of like Benson. Remember recently we saw Benson, the show. He was telling.
Benson.
He was telling. Was he the president? Who was Benson?
Benson was the governor's.
The governor. Yeah,
he was the governor's butler.
Yeah, but he was giving the governor, telling him what to do
With the tips, yeah.
And the governor wasn't really that smart, but he would go out there
and tell him
And
tell him
present
what Benson was a smart guy.
Right.
Yeah.
He was behind the scenes.
Yeah, and it's like if you think about it, even in Shakespearean time, the Cyrano story, there's always somebody behind the scenes whispering in somebody's. It's about credit, and so I'm at the point now. I feel like we're at this time. We're at a tipping point. Everybody deserves their credit. Everybody deserves their flowers right now.
I like it.
Yeah.
And I want to highlight that.
So you were talking about you're kind of like behind the scenes and quiet when it comes to like, let's just say protesting. Use that word? Mm-hmm. So what is your way of protesting and how does that work for you? What is the message you're bringing and how is that your protest in your own way?
So for me, food is my protest. It is my way of unifying people and bringing people together of all racial backgrounds, creeds, colors. Like I said, ethnicities and, what your beliefs are and if you're cisgender, whatever, I don't care. We're all the same at this table. And at this table, we can't hear noise because all you can do is taste this food. And if I can tell you about this food in a story that the food is telling, that might help soften you a little bit more to understanding what somebody else has gone through, somebody else's plight. And when I say heritage, yes, of course, my heritage is always going to be prominent. It's going to because it's who I am.
Right.
It's me. Yeah. But I'm interested in all people's heritages.
Right.
Food is beautiful. It's sultry. It's intelligent. And it is very special. And I think that we've come to a time in this place where we are in a society where we don't appreciate that anymore either.
Right.
And only a few are appreciating it because they can maybe afford a more fine dining situation. But even then, if so much technique in that, you're losing the food in that. And you really want the soul.
What you're saying is so, I think it's so important, but I really like it because I don't know much about the cuisine and the other types of food. And, what you made for us was really, really good. I had to actually slow down because I had to savor the taste, right? Mm-hmm. And what did we have? We had the little green leaf, the sage?
Sage.
The sage
fried sage.
Good.
Was fried in butter.
Brown butter.
I don't even know if I've ate sage before, right? Maybe I have by accident. This was on purpose, and it was good. And so things like that. But those type of details of what you're talking about, heritage is being lost, and there's so much, with food that brings people together.
So much processed food out there too.
Yeah, so I like that. I like what you're doing and what you believe in, and you're also doing something yourself. Didn't you have an event recently?
Yeah. I've recently launched my own personal brand, Chef Roslind Renee. And as part of my personal brand, my chef services and cuisine, I started the dining series. And then the first dining event was a tasting. And it was a 6-course tasting event. And it was a lot about me. It was about how I came to love food in the way I do, what I like about entertaining, and why I chose a dining series. I am very diverse background, I believe. I'm not as fully studied up on it as I'm planning to be, but I know that my paternal grandparents and my maternal grandparents were both big entertainers. They love to entertain. And that's something we don't see a lot anymore. People don't entertain in their homes as much. Back then it was necessity because they came from a generation in time where they couldn't be out and about and free in clubs.
There was not a lot of choices.
There was not a lot of choices. So they created their entertainment within their circle at home. And the things that I served at that event were reflective of that.
Okay.
Because I learned in this university I go to, shout out to Full Sail University, but we're doing storytelling, and they were talking about brands that, nowadays you have to connect with people from the inside, not extrinsically but intrinsically. And if people, know your story, they're more likely to understand it and also want to be a part of it.
Right.
And I never realized how much storytelling is important to your brand and to your mission, So when you talk about your story, you had the 6-course series and things like that. That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And for me, it was a big deal because I don't share much of my story very much. I am very close-lipped.
Okay, here we go. We're gonna have to talk about that for a second.
That.
Why are you so close-lipped about? Why are you so to yourself? What's going on with you, Rosie? Talk to us.
Why are you so private?
Well, you gotta think. I grew up in a generation where there was no social media. There was no any of that. It was what you did is what you did, and you always wanted to have a. And I'm still, adjusting. You're from that generation where your public outward presentation is what reflects for your, like you said, your brand, your business, your everything. You want to be deemed as professional. You want to be deemed as intelligent. You want to be deemed as skilled. Any little crack in that makes it like, oh, you're not worthy for that position. So there's a lot of imposter syndrome, sitting in there, nervous that, maybe I don't measure up. But then at the time, there's a lot of vulnerability that makes you like, oh, wow, people's eyes. I didn't grow up where the camera's on 24/7.
Right.
Right.
Thank God for that.
What I realized too with the storytelling in this class I'm taking is that authenticity is the key to sustainability with whatever mission you're doing. You have to be true and authentic to yourself.
That's true.
So that's why
you can't fake it for that long.
That's why with that information, you're authentic to what you believe and who you are. So it will never fall because that's it'll never be an imposter or anything or whatever, because it's you.
Yeah, but I think also there is a growth cycle to that as an individual, because while the world might see it as, oh, that's authenticity and that's beautiful, you as an individual have to still process your way through it. And you still have to be like, okay, because you're raised by those people who came up in Jim Crow and this and that, and they're like, no, you need to. Everybody knows what code switching is. You're like, when I was in my 20s, people were like, why do you talk like you're white? Right. No, I just talk proper. But that's
I just speak English.
I just speak English.
Right.
But it's like, oh, okay, there's something wrong with me.
You're like, wait, what?
Wait, what? But it's breaking down the barriers of what people think that you should be from what you actually are.
And this goes all the way back to school, being yourself, right? Some people may not get it, some people might make comments or whatever they say, but if you are who you are and you're true to it and you're comfortable with that, it's always going to be
the same way. Yeah,
it's always going to be okay. And then you'll have people like, oh man, they want to be you because you're comfortable with who you are and what you believe in, right? Because, you know, high school is like you want to be cool, you want to fit in, there's different groups.
You're trying to find yourself.
You know?
Yeah.
You know?
You know, I grew up in the era of, ooh, can I touch your hair?
Yeah.
Are you black?
That era went away?
Yeah, it's still there too. We won't discuss that one.
Edit.
You know, you got Indian in your family?
Yeah.
You know, and I'd be like, no, I'm black. Can't you just be happy I'm black? I'm black.
And this is by your own people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. I'm sure someone else outside the culture is not saying, do you have Indian in your family?
No, I know.
'Cause it's all the same.
Yeah.
Right,
It's all
but
the
can I
same.
touch your hair?
This is a big 80s. This is like
Yeah.
80s, 2000s.
But can I touch your hair? That wasn't black people.
It's not from your people.
Yeah.
It was
was
black
all people,
It was-
yeah.
Oh, okay, so
It was all people.
Because white people, they're curious about, because they don't have that hair.
Right.
So they want to touch it. And when you're a kid,
I would
kids
just-
say
Kids
whatever
say-
they kid.
You
I
don't
would just
really
do
know.
the same.
As
Let
an
me touch
adult.
your hair.
Huh?
I would do the same. Let me
Yeah,
touch your hair.
but it's not nothing. It's nothing bad. Like
It's
when
not.
you're a kid. If you're an adult saying, "Can I touch your hair?"
But you have to think,
unless you've
too.
been sheltered.
When I was a kid, I wasn't wearing my hair curly. I was actually wearing my hair straight.
Oh, you're straightening it.
I was straightening it. I was straightening it hard.
Your
And
mother told you to do that.
I hated my curls. I had a lot of self-hate back then.
Girl.
I hated my curls.
Let's talk about it.
I hated my curls. I asked for my hair to be permed at every instance it could be.
Jeez.
And my hair was always, so it was super silky straight all the time.
Yeah.
Because I was getting it permed. And so, yeah, people would be curious, like, and it struck me as odd, and it made me feel some kind of way, I guess, because I did always feel like I had something to prove, like,
Or hide.
because I wasn't enough just based on how I looked. And so now as I've gotten older, I'm settled into my skin and my hair and who I am. You know, I really want to explore heritage.
Yeah.
Who we are, who I am,
I think a
and
lot
I
of
like to
little-
do it through food.
Yeah.
I think a lot of little brown girls go through the same thing, you know, in general, whether it just, you know, I'm not dark enough or I'm not light enough or my hair's too curly or my hair's not curly enough, you know, so it's good to hear that as you get older, you do
Oh,
embrace what you have and realize that what you had was the shit the whole time.
The whole time. The whole damn time.
You know what
he
I mean?
was the shit,
Like,
and you didn't even know.
Right. but at least you found that out. Because good Lord, how sad would it have been?
It's like that sage on your plate. The whole time you were looking at, like, should I
Right.
eat that? No. And then you just kept picking
I
around
put
it.
mine to the
That's a
side.
perfect example.
And then you
I
cut
put
into
mine to
it,
the
and you
side
were
until
like,
she said, "Did you have the stage?" And then I had to go back and get more.
and did it not change your whole perspective on the
Lord.
dish?
Lord, had it by
yes.
itself, and then I had to mix it with the pasta. Yeah, dip back into that brown sauce, and it was good.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people go through that, you know, not knowing who they are and wanting to fit in,
Right.
and you know, I remember when I was in, you know, my parents are from Guyana, South America, you know, the Caribbean, West Indian. So, you know, I grew up eating curry and all kinds of stuff, and pepper pot and roti and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, curry goat is something that was normal. Right? I grew up eating goat.
Yeah.
Right.
I get to elementary school
In Canada,
in Canada. Shout out to Laval. And I'm eating, kids. Oh, what is that? What are you eating?
They bring their
They're
lunch to school.
I'm like, oh, this is curry. This is goat curry. Goat?
Yeah.
They were freaking out. Like, yo, you eat goat? My whole life, I thought goat was like
you're like, what do you mean?
normal.
You thought it was like cow.
I thought it was like
Same
beef,
thing.
chicken, goat. Yeah, they were like, everyone is like mortified.
Like huddling
So
around.
at that point, I was like, wait a second. Like, I'm the only one that eats goat,
Am
right?
I different?
I go home like, I was like, mommy, they were making fun of me because I eat goat, and then they were like, she was like, yeah, son, we're from another country, we're from Guyana, and this is goat is normal, but in the United States or Canada, in North America, it's not normal or average, or I don't know what the word is, but yeah, it's
That's
Not the norm.
But that's my point in finding heritage in heritage dining. It's not about it's not normal. It is normal. It's just not commonplace.
It's just different to them.
It's not commonplace because when you look at where you're from, you look at the area, the terrain, what's available, what's being raised to pasture, from pasture to table. Cows are not something that's prevalent down there. They're not going to do well. One, there's landscaping of the whole, like the amount of land and the grazing and all of that. Yeah. So you're not going to get that. But goats, on the other hand, that's a lot more easy to raise and easier to deal with.
Oh, that makes sense.
So that's what you have, and that's what you're going to eat. Versus, for example, even in the North America of the United States, cattle wasn't everywhere all the time. It was only in a select area. And once the Great Migration started and people started migrating west, and then the Industrial Revolution with railways and things like that, it made cattle more available throughout the landscape. But there was a point in time where if you were above the Mason-Dixon line, you weren't really doing a lot of cow. You were doing a lot of grains and vegetables and things like that. So we're talking about, if we talk about getting back to our true roots and our heritage and understanding what's in our food, what we're putting in our bodies, how it's being processed, how it's being preserved, we have to look back before we can look forward.
Makes sense.
You're big on history.
Deep. Yeah, it's pretty deep.
Right? I'm not good with history. A lot of history, like history class and all that stuff. It wasn't really.
Yeah, learning.
I guess
today.
It depends on what kind of history. But when you say that, you have to know from the past before you can move forward. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you have to understand your past before you can embrace your future.
Can you explain that when it's something to do with, like, I understand that with, like, my history since I was born, right? I know that history. But, like, other history, does that apply to, like...
Applies to all history.
I think it
okay,
would.
I saw the lines in your forehead. So, that means you were serious about that, right? So,
it was conviction.
Yeah, it was conviction. Well, that's the part I want to know more about, why those lines came in, and I don't know why that... exactly how you have to know your history. And I hear it. It's not the first time I heard that, but how is that applied to your future?
If you don't know your past, you're doomed to repeat it.
Hold on. But my past...
all past.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Give me an example, if you can, about, like, how the history that I don't know, because I don't really follow history.
Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure you do.
I mean, I follow some history. But
because you have to think about it. It's all wrapped in around us. Think about our current state of affairs right now. You have the Black Lives Matter movement. Yeah. You have all these different movements happening. Now you've got all Blue Lives Matter, all lives matter. Everybody's life. We all know all lives matter.
Right.
But the reason why it's so prevalent to say Black Lives Matter is because if we're not careful, we will be doomed to repeat what we've already been through, where we marginalized and diminished the life of a black person to where they were not even considered a human being. If you look at the early Constitution, it says, we were considered property. We weren't, it was okay because we were laborers and we weren't considered human.
Right.
So the reason why it matters, and yes, all lives do matter, okay? But the reason this life matters is because you once told us we were not human. We did not matter. Right. And I need you to understand, I do matter, I still matter. I mattered then, and I matter now, and I will matter in the future.
Sure.
And therefore, you must stand up and pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Be my advocate. Don't defend what it is that you don't understand. Have grace. Come, sit at this table with me. Break this bread and understand my plight.
Have this conversation.
Have the conversation that's hard
Uncomfortable.
and uncomfortable without justifying and defending.
Or making excuses, right?
Or making excuses.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And sometimes I look at the world and I'm like, you can't make people care. Maybe you can. I don't know if you could, but people have to care first to want to make a change or change their ways or whatever. So it's like people that have hope, I admire, because I don't have hope. I don't believe in hope, meaning that it's like when people say racism, oh, racism's getting better, or it's gonna, like, I don't believe racism is getting better, and I don't believe that it's gonna go away ever.
Right. I don't think it's that you don't have hope. I think it's just that you're a realist. So everything for you is like keep it real. This is what it is. You know, without using the term keep it real.
Right.
But you know what I mean? It's just
It's like
let's be honest. Let's not try to say it's this if it's not.
right, because when you do that, it's like
Yeah.
you're dangling something above somebody
Something that's false.
that they may never get to, and they're jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping when they may never hit that what they're trying to jump for.
Yeah.
I think that's, for you, that's your view on
Right.
things, and which makes your view unique to you.
Right.
But there's no gray. Your view is very black and white.
We know that. We know that.
In terms of, like you said, that's
that.
hope. Hope is that gray area. Hope is the little bit of light that you see in a tunnel that you don't know if you're going to make it out, but you know there's light at the end of that tunnel somewhere. And so I'm going to hope if I keep moving forward, one foot in front of the other, I will eventually get there. Now, I may not make it there in my lifetime. You may not make it there in your lifetime. But at some point, we pray and hope that we will make it there.
I just think with your personality is you don't want to give false hope. Like you don't want to. You don't have the patience. Or you rather this is what it is, and if it changes, fantastic. But you don't want to be waiting. You don't want to be what's the word? Just hopeful for it and waiting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're right.
You know, you're open to if it happens, fantastic.
Right.
But I'm just gonna stay here until it happens.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
and
you're
that's
not let down.
and that's for my mind. It
But
works
that-
as like
that's
accepting,
your personality,
accepting.
yeah.
Not that I'm okay with it, you know.
Yeah, but you accept it.
I accept it. Doesn't
Accepting
mean
what
that
it
I
is.
agree with it.
Right. Correct.
You know what I mean? And that's
Correct.
what helps.
For you.
I guess it depends on who you are and your personality and how you think. But it helps me for my mind to know, because I need more certainty. and
Because if
more-
you were hopeful, then you have more of chances of being let down.
That's true, because with hope comes disappointment.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have to be,
Yeah.
you have to accept that.
So you rather stay here, and you know what? And you're accepting to everyone else who's hopeful, of course.
Right.
But as soon as something changes that
Yeah.
everyone else has been hoping for,
Yeah.
you're open to that, of course, and happy about it.
You know what I just thought about? I just thought about something. And it happened last night, as a matter of fact, because I'm doing an assignment on Terry Fox. He had cancer. This is when I was growing up in Canada. But he's a hero, a legend in Canada. He was diagnosed with cancer at 18, and he had his leg amputated. So he was going to run across Canada to raise money, and his goal was like $1 million. So he ran 2/3 of the way, but then he had to stop because the cancer went to his lungs, and then he died shortly after. So he never finished. but he ended up raising like 24 million while he was alive.
Wow.
To this day, they have a Terry Fox run that happens every year, and they've raised up to almost $900 million, right? But I did the assignment, and it was called the Marathon of Hope, and he made the difference. And till this day, he died in 1981. It's 2022. They still have, and they've raised up to almost $1 billion. So I guess I might have to think of the bigger picture besides myself and how I think, because what you're doing and what you believe in with your food and knowing what's missing and what you're trying to implement and have people see, that might catch flames and now in 2046, like Roslind started this movement of, cooking, bringing people together and understanding that heritage is being lost. So I guess I got to look at it, the big picture outside of myself.
I think you do, though. I think you do. Like, I was saying that you do, but for you just rather, everyone else is hopeful. You're like, cool, be hopeful. But you don't want to have your hopes high.
Right. For me, yeah.
For you.
Right. So that's why I look at it from my point of view. But then if I think outside of my life, it might be 3 generations from now.
Right.
Or,
right.
Or it may never. But
right.
Just because it's not going to happen in, the next 50 years.
Right.
Right.
Or it may happen.
Or and just because you don't think it may not happen.
Yeah.
And even you can look at it even like breast cancer awareness, because it's October, right?
Yeah.
We're talking breast cancer awareness month. Oh, everything. Everything was pink, 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 pink for a long time.
Right.
Pink yogurt, pink this, everything gave, proceeds go to breast cancer awareness. Susan G. Komen run, walk, this, that, the other thing. My mom is 3 times breast cancer. And I even got to the point where I was like, this is crap. And everybody's pink ribbons, pink this, everything's pink, pink, pink. But why don't we still have a cure for breast cancer? So, and I did. I felt some kind of way about it too. And I was like, I was like, whatever, but here she is. She's in her 3rd battle right now. She has metastatic breast cancer. And metastatic breast cancer is where breast cancer has metastasized and spread to your bones in your body. You're going to live with it for as long as you can live with it, and you won't. And then eventually it will consume you. Mm-hmm. However, I think about that in the terms of there was a time in the 80s where folks weren't living even a couple of years after they were diagnosed. Right. Now people are living years. My mom, don't get me started, she is 5 years old.
Shout out to Mom Dukes. And
she is she's 3rd, this is her 3rd bout, and she was re-diagnosed 2 years ago with metastatic. And so we're talking almost 30 years she has moved on past it with that. That's a long time. And if we didn't have hope and we didn't keep doing these types of things, we wouldn't even have these types of advancements.
That's so true. That's a great way of putting it.
That was really classic. That's true.
That was a great example.
That's true. Because they even talked about, because I'm in the school, they talked about, sometimes it's your mentality, your mindset sometimes will, like, I forgot what it was they were talking about, but they were talking about people that, it was a TED Talk, but people that died of, I forgot what it was. It was because they thought they were going to die. And then the people that were like, I don't think I'm going to die, or whatever. It was just a mindset that these people lived longer. And I forgot what it was exactly. I know.
It's like when they give you the placebo versus the real medication. Right. But tell the people with the placebo the opposite. Yeah. Them people over here thinking they're dying. You're like, but there's nothing wrong with you. But the person with the medication and who did have something wrong, they said, yeah, we just gave you this, and they went on and lived a great life for a long time.
Right.
It's it really does boil down to we are just tapping the surfaces of what our mind is capable of. We are never even.
Another thing is a stroke, right? Back in the day when you had a stroke and you're half your body or whatever, they would just say, oh, just that's the way your life's going to be.
Yeah.
But they realized through neuroplasticity, part of your brain where you just keep exercising something, that you can actually come back, get your other side, like at least, maybe not 100%, but like close to it.
Not 100% yet.
Yeah. But back in the day, they were just like, oh, let's say you have a stroke, half your body is just...
It's over.
It's over. Just that's how your life's going to be.
Yeah.
But like your brain and how you think has a lot to do with your recovery.
That's why I never liked when doctors, when they give you like, they give people.
They give you a time.
They give you a time.
Yeah, like, oh, you got 2 weeks to live.
Yeah.
I got 2 weeks to live. Good Lord.
I'll go right back to that same story I was just saying about my mom.
Yeah.
My mom, like I said, it's been like 3 years since she was re-diagnosed here. Like, I think it happened right before COVID or right during COVID. And she's been on this medication the whole time, and it's really helped her a lot. She went to California. She's hanging out there with my other sister right now, and she went into a doctor's appointment, and the doctor told her, oh, wow, you're still taking that dosage? Most people have had to have their dosage reduced by now because it's not working well for their body. As soon as this man then told her that, now she's like, how are you doing, Ma? Oh, I'm just doing well. No, what we're not going to do is go down that road because some random doctor said this to you because you've been fine up to then. Yes, you're going to have your ups and downs. But let's not stay in that place. Let's start that mental thing back in the right direction.
What do you call a doctor that graduated with D's? And no. What is it? What do you call I think it's. I messed it up. But anyways, what do you call?
With a joke right now.
No. They say. What do you call a doctor that graduated with D's, and what do you call a doctor that graduated with A's?
A doctor.
A doctor, exactly. So basically, just because someone's a doctor doesn't mean that they have the answers or they even know, they're even a good doctor. You know what I'm saying? Just because it says doctor doesn't mean that they know all the answers.
No, you're so right.
Or even
somebody told me, why do you think they call it the practice of medicine?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Because every day, all they're doing is practicing on you. But again, that's why I keep going back to food.
Yeah.
So much of what we suffer from, where we're at, is because of our food.
I agree. I do agree.
Way back when, in the early days, people didn't live very long. But that was mostly because of real disease, like gangrene, whatever. They would lose something, and then they couldn't control fevers and blah, blah, blah. But these people were, if you looked at their diet, they were healthy, strong people because things were natural.
I thought people lived longer back in the day.
I mean, they lived longer, like if you want to go to Moses' time.
According to the Bible,
they lived longer. But if we want to talk industrial revolution, pre-settlement, things like that.
So what is your ultimate vision of where you want to be, whether it's short term or long term with the food? Because I could tell that you really like what you do, you're enjoying it, and you're having impact. So what is your next step, and what do you have ahead of you, your vision?
For me, I envision, I was telling Lisa earlier, I was like, I envision myself as I
was going to ask, do you see yourself owning a restaurant one day?
Yeah, she asked me if I saw myself owning a restaurant, and I said no. Hands down.
Quickly,
no.
She said no.
Yeah, like,
well, no. It's no when the lines come in the forehead.
You never know, though. I mean, you don't know what the universe has for you.
It's a hard no.
Well, you did say no to the job or to working with in high school, right? So you did say no then, and now look at you 8 years later. So maybe there's something ahead of you that you don't even know that I guess you got to keep your options open.
But then I clarified it too.
Clarify it.
The terms is no in terms of a commercial restaurant. The way we see restaurants now and what we're doing and where we go, I do not see myself ever owning that type of restaurant. What I saw myself or see myself doing is a true farm to table retreat experience.
Farm to table retreat experience.
Well, like a restaurant where
it's not a restaurant. It's not even really a restaurant. It's more of you're coming here more in sense of you're maybe doing a retreat or a bed and breakfast or an experience for a couple days. I'm going to show you how to cook some things, and we're going to harvest things. And what we harvest, we cook, and then we eat. But we're not going out and spending $200 a night on dinner, and then you leave and go home and go right back to your rat race. I want you to think about what you ate. I want you to think about where it came from, and I want you to think about how you could make some changes in your life when you do leave here and go back home.
Okay. Now, that is a great concept, and when you start doing that, right? When, because it's going to happen. But when that happens, things grow whenever people love it and people want it, right? So then maybe later on there might be a stage where you branch out. You personally can't be everywhere, right? So you'll have to maybe do something like a restaurant or something,
or
another
restaurant,
or you train the people in California or whatever.
That's a beautiful thought.
Right.
But why?
Why what?
Why not? So you could.
Wait, hold on.
What my question is, but why do I have to?
Why do you have to what?
Why does it have to be bigger? Why can't it just be small? Why can't it just be that place?
So you could reach more people and educate more people on what they're putting in their bodies.
But see, that's the thing. When you mass produce something and you start to expand it so that everybody, everywhere, I think you start to lose a portion of your impact.
That might be true, but like the demand of what you provided for people, that means you're denying people an experience because they can't get to Texas or
that's
they can't
good. That was good.
Education.
Get home.
Because I think you might be associating with restaurants and big mass things as a the way it is now, like it's kind of like not a great thing as far as authentic and the real thing, because it's like mass produced, but like doing what you do on the level that you feel it really embodies what you want to give out, because Aunt Jemima, I don't know, she made syrup, right? But
that's still not good.
Hold on, there's things, I just use Aunt Jemima just because I grew up with that, but there's things that people do, whether it's they just have other people. It becomes like bigger than just the people around you that get to experience it. But that's just how I think.
Well, just because there might be somebody who's just as passionate as you are and want to use your recipes. Like you could train them.
But that's the thing.
To use your recipes.
That's what I was going to say.
Educate more people.
It's not. I don't have to do it. I don't have to get bigger. I don't have to expand. I don't have to franchise. I can stay where I stay, but I could eventually consult. I could help you take your twist on my concept and make it yours, come to you. And it's really about educating. I can't be an expert in all things.
Right.
But if you lived in Ontario or wherever and wanted to create this type of a concept where you stayed, then my goal would be to help you do that.
Do it in their own way?
In their way and in their area. Thing. But I don't need to multiply mine
I got
in
you.
order to, because what I'm doing is uniquely positioned to me.
Yeah.
So even if I do train everybody to do what I do and say I, decided that where I wanted this to be was right here in Texas, but maybe I have something else somewhere else. It's different because you're not there. You're the
Right. You can help somebody do their thing.
Because
I'm gonna help you do your thing, because there's a quote, a recipe has no soul until the cook itself and puts their soul into it.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, I cook with love, and it's not and then you have cooks that'll be like, well, that's not an ingredient. It's not an ingredient. It is an essential necessity to making that food taste good. That's why you can taste a food, like if you have an argument with your spouse or whatever, and they cook dinner tonight because it's their obligation still to cook dinner tonight, and that food, they cooked this dish a million times, and a million times you loved it, but this night you tasted it tastes like trash.
It's dry.
It's trash because the feeling isn't there that it usually is, or the
That's
feeling
probably
that
true.
you have when you you normally eat it, because you're like, man, I know she cooked this way because she loved me, and you're like, she don't love me today.
I done pissed her off.
It's just one of those things. It's not an ingredient. It's not a tangible thing.
That makes sense.
Another thing too is everywhere is different. Like I was talking to the Halcyon coffee shop. So there's Halcyons and there's 5 in Texas, which she was explaining that certain things in Austin might not work in Dallas and things like that.
Right.
So depending where you're at, and it's better to cater to even like McDonald's. McDonald's is all over the world, but McDonald's in Japan or McDonald's in Canada and
In Hawaii.
they have different menus.
Yes.
Based
Yeah, we
on
learned
It's called
that.
regional cuisine.
regional cuisine.
It's
Yeah.
based on what works in that area.
So that would be good for you because, like you just said, you could help another person in that area, whether it's Arizona, do what you do with their style
Yeah.
and their love and their ingredients.
Yep.
And basically, it's like you're collaborating in a way.
Yeah.
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 You're just giving out pointers.
Just, it's,
Education.
if Lisa asked me earlier, do I cook Spanish food? And I was like, no, I'm really not adept at cooking Spanish food. It's not something I've had a lot of experience in. Do I want to learn more about Spanish food and cook more, types of Spanish food? Of course, I would love to. I had a friend once who taught me how to cook a traditional Spanish tortilla. I was like, man, I cooked that thing forever. I loved that. And it was a simple dish, thinly sliced potatoes, thinly sliced onions, cooked into tender. Then you take them out, drain it, put them back in, add your eggs, flip it, poof. It was beautiful. It's traditional tapas meal.
What you said? You just said you're not familiar with Hispanic.
I didn't say Hispanic.
Sorry, Spanish.
I said Spanish.
What's the difference? We won't go there right now. We won't even go there right now because that area we could talk about, but that
there are differences.
Yeah,
just like if you
And
Cuban
tortillas.
and Puerto Rican or Dominican and
Mexican.
Mexican, whatever.
Yeah.
You're from your region. Your region is different. If you're from Mexico and you're from El Salvador, it's different.
When you said Spanish food, you meant from Spain?
I meant from Spain.
Okay.
Okay, because when you said tortilla, I was like, oh, I hope she wasn't thinking I was asking about Mexican food.
No, I meant a Spanish tortilla.
Gotcha.
And it's called a tortilla. But it's not tortilla in the sense that most Americans
Affiliated
are
with Mexican
with
food.
Mexican tortillas.
And Texas and everywhere is different because in Florida, if you say, "Are you Spanish?" you're talking about Puerto Rican, Dominican,
Right.
Cuban,
Exactly.
stuff like that. But
That's
then
the
you got
Latina we're
people,
talking
you got
about.
people say Spanish, they're thinking from Spain.
Right.
So that's why.
Which that is technically true. Spanish is Spain. Latina.
I know, but what I'm saying is when people say it, depending on where you're from, will
don't
depend
know,
on what you're saying. Like if you said, "Are you Spanish?" If you're in Florida and you say, "Are you Spanish?" people know that you mean, "Are you Dominican, Ecuadorian, whatever."
Yeah.
But then that's also ignorance in a sense, because everybody, it's the equivalent of asking me if I got Indian in my family.
Right.
I mean, yes, I probably do. Well, it's not even probably. I know I do.
I was just
However,
gonna say,
but it's not what defines me. You know, all Latin cultures at some point or another are derivative from Spain, from Spanish, from the Spanish settlers who settled in those regions and then flourished. So
That's absolutely
again,
true.
you have to think, you go all the way back. We want to wipe away history and talk about it as critical race theory or talk about slavery. Well, we don't want to talk about that. That's negative. Why don't we want to talk about that? We need to talk about that so you can understand where we are now, where we are going. You don't ever let us forget the Holocaust. We don't forget the Holocaust because it was horrible. We should never forget slavery.
Who says that? I mean, I guess the people that weren't slaves.
Exactly. People who weren't. But to think about it, the people who held slaves, they were the Spanish, the French, you know.
Spanish Spain.
Yes,
That's why in Spanish Spain, you know, we could edit it if you want to, but Spanish Spain doesn't really embrace, let's just say, Puerto Ricans,
Right.
Dominicans, because Spanish Spain is the Caucasian of all Spaniard. So a Puerto Rican, just for your knowledge, is
I know. You don't tell me.
Spain,
Spain
Spanish?
and Africans.
Black, and Indian.
Yeah. The native people of that land
when
already when they
when a
arrived.
Puerto Rican meets a person from Spain and is like, "Oh, we're the same. We're Spanish." They're like,
No,
you're mixed."
No, but nobody's gonna say that though.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But that's
No one
that's
says it,
right?
but it's very prevalent.
right. That's what it is.
It's that pervasive
let-
underbelly of thinking I'm better than you.
Right. Let me make it real clear. Right. Just make it into black and white. A black and white person who's mixed with black and white, they're more accepted on their black side. White people are like, "Oh, you're black," even though you're like, "Well, I'm 50% white." You're black, but same.
Because all they can see is the outward appearance of you.
Right.
Which is why, and the only reason why we get into this now and we talk about it in schools and you're talking about critical race theory and we don't want to, it's because those people who were not affected by it don't want to be offended by it anymore. It makes them uncomfortable. And because they're uncomfortable, they don't want to have to deal with it anymore. They don't want to have to field questions from their children in school, or they don't want to hear about it. That was so many years. That was 200 years ago. Why do we still have to talk about it? We have to talk about it because you never want to forget about it. If we forget about it, we're bound to repeat it at some point.
Yeah.
You have to think, we never forget about talking about Hitler. We never forget about the Holocaust.
Right.
Yes, it wasn't as long ago, but it's still painful. And even when we're still fighting. We're only little over 50 years from having the right to vote.
Right.
Well, 60 years. Yeah, from having the right to vote. So why do you think I should ever stop talking about my rights as a person of color? Or a woman, for that matter?
That's a whole new can of worms right there.
Yeah, no, it's I just have to look at it because it makes sense, but it's kind of like how I look at the world. The world is what it is, whether I like it or not. And
That's
it's
the
like,
realist part again.
yeah, it's like that's like I've accepted that my wife is going to change her mind at any time because she's a woman, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
because she's a woman.
That's what he says.
Yeah, women change their mind. That's probably another topic, but that's just, you guys, any husband out there will tell you that their wife changes their mind at any time. They feel differently at different moments. You ask me a question right now, you ask me tomorrow, I feel the same way as I did yesterday. It may change for a woman. My point, I don't want to focus on the woman thing. My point is that I've accepted that, whether I like it or not. This is what it is. So when something is what it is, I'm not telling anyone to do anything different. I just look at it like, okay, you know, what it is as far as me being black and me being treated differently or whatever the situation is like, that's what it is. I'm not saying I like it or agree with it, but I've accepted certain things that maybe some people will get really mad at. Or,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I feel you on that.
You know?
I accept certain things for a lot of different things. I accept what it is to be treated the way I am because I'm a woman. I accept certain things to be treated the way I am because I'm a black woman.
Right.
I accept certain things for what it is because I'm an educator. Because
strong.
Because all of those things, and to be a chef, and doesn't make it right, but it doesn't mean that I should give. Doesn't mean that I should give up hope from trying to push forward for better for the next generation, right, or for the next person even. You know, right now in education, we are in a crisis. They're talking about record shortages of teachers, people exiting the profession at great and high numbers, and what are we going to do to stop it?
It's Joe.
But the thing is what people don't realize is that the reason people are exiting the profession at the rate that they're doing and doing this is because you're applying more and more pressure to the educator and less pressure to home. My job as a teacher should be to teach your child. It shouldn't be to raise your child. Mm-hmm. And in the school system, this public school system, not necessarily private or any other type of institution, more and more responsibilities seem to be falling on the teacher to rear the student in a way and correct behavior that should have been corrected at home, to hold you to higher standards, to push you for greatness, to help train you. Things that when I came up, that was my mom's job. Did you do your homework today? We don't even send homework home with kids anymore. If your kid's not doing well in school, before I can fail them, I need to call home 50 million times, document 15 times. If the kid even asks me one time, can he retake something, give you opportunities to retake. We are living now with the repercussions of the participation trophy generation.
But I got to say that the reason behind that is it's really deep. Like, it goes far.
Yeah.
Because it's not only, you can't say it's just a parent not being
a parent. It's so much.
Because there is that. But then there's also, where a single mom has to have 3 jobs. And how could she make sure that her son or child or, is doing his homework? She's working 3 jobs because dad left. There's so many different scenarios that it's not always,
she's there, she's gone, he's gone. The kid's taking care of the siblings. It's a lot. Right. The kids, they don't have enough money, so they need to
get
work.
A job themselves.
And now the kid is working too.
Yeah.
And the kid is doing all of these things. There are so many things. And the reason it's that way is because the system has set it up that way. The system has, we brought forth this system of welfare and all the assistance programs and all of these things, you are almost penalized for being a good parent.
Right.
To having a 2-person household and whatever. Nope, y'all make too much money. You make $1 over the limit of $19,000 or
Right.
whatever it is. So now
struggle.
they're like, that's what happened with, you know, that's basically where the Black Panther movement came from, and the fact that men were leaving the households thinking they were doing a good thing so that they could get assistance, but in turn it tore the family apart.
Right.
It's so deep. It's very pervasive.
It's a lot.
And it's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
However,
it's a lot. I know I brought that up.
it boils all the way down to politics and the policies that are being passed. And which is why teachers are frustrated in general, because you have all these responsibilities placed on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And we're tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie. We tired.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, so is that mom who's working 3 jobs.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Who's trying to get Bobby to do his extra homework.
And he don't want to do it, and so therefore he don't care.
Yeah, because, you know.
You're like, what?
Or even if you do have it, not to say that, you know, it's because the dad left, but even if you do have 2 hardworking parents.
They're hardworking.
They're hardworking.
That's the key.
You know?
And then you've got the thing where
We'll be here forever.
Yeah.
There you have. And then
Yeah.
you have, and then you have.
the participation trophies. Oh, you came. Like, oh my God, the kids that asked me, Miss, I showed up. I should get 100.
Huh?
What? What you?
Who
100?
Who privileged you?
What you think that got you?
You
You came. That's
sit your
you
ass down.
started.
Right.
The bar is here.
Thank you for starting.
Thank you for showing up to start. But yeah, like, and that's for me as a culinary teacher. That's my battle. My battle is you showed up to start. Now let's get to work.
So your battle is trying to make them understand that, you know, you're doing what's expected and you're pushing them to do more
than what's expected,
because that's going to help you in the world, period, when you get out of my class and move on with your life.
My students are seniors and juniors.
Oh, okay.
So when you leave me, you going to work, baby, for life.
Yeah.
They're like, Miss, I don't want to be a chef. You don't have to. I'm not telling you to be a chef, but I'm challenging you to gain some skills that will help you be a better person, a better human, a better employee one day, a better business owner if you choose that route.
Yeah.
But whatever you do, you need to do it with everything you've got.
And I can see you saying that. Like, I could see you saying that.
Oh, I say it.
Yeah, I know. I see it. Like I said. I can see her saying that.
How long do you think you'll be teaching? Oh, actually, I don't know if you know, but I was going to ask you, do you see teaching, because you enjoy teaching, you're helping kids and you're showing them. It's been 8 years. Do you feel like you have a lot more time there? I don't know if you could answer that here on a podcast.
But, no, I don't have a problem with answering that on a podcast.
Yeah. So do you see yourself, you know, are you getting either bored or not challenged, or is it monotonous? Because I know sometimes after a while, for some people, when they do something for almost a decade, it's like, you know what, this was cool. I learned a lot, and I'm ready for the next.
No, I think I'll teach forever, but I won't teach high school forever. I will always be an educator. But I will not always teach high school.
Because you want to move it around, or because high school is just those? It's just
for me, the reward to exertion of effort is diminishing by the day.
Okay.
Well, we'll say the school year.
Right.
But my desire is always to help those who want to learn.
I think that's called passion.
Well, she wants
For me, it's called purpose.
Purpose, because you can have passion and exude it to people that don't really care. But when you have purpose, like somebody wants to learn and she wants to teach, then that's a perfect marriage. It sounds like to me not all those high school kids are interested in the class.
Right. Of course not. Yeah.
So she might want to spend her time teaching people that
do
appreciate it
Yeah.
or want it or yearning
Makes
for
sense.
it or understand the vision or how important it is, and that might happen with maybe younger people or maybe older people.
Makes sense.
It could be anybody.
Yeah, I'm not exclusive to whatever it is. It's just as long as it is aligning in a way that it is supposed to be.
What do you see more that you need in your life with what your mission is? What do you need more? Because as you get older, you learn more about yourself and what you need and what you want. What are those needs that you realize that, hey, I need this in that field? Like right now you were saying you need, well, not that you need, but it sounds like you're saying you need to go and teach people more that are not high school. So that means there's a need there, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a need there.
So are you discovering that about yourself, or did you always know this about yourself?
I always knew this about me.
I
always knew that I would never be in high school forever.
Okay.
From the moment I walked through the door.
What do you think you've learned about yourself in the last 10 years or last 8 years that you discovered? Or do you feel like you still know yourself like you did 8 years ago?
No, I'm a totally different person.
Give me those things that changed.
I have grown so much and evolved, both as an educator and a professional. When I started teaching, I only knew what I knew. I didn't know what I didn't know until I started to be more curious and seek out and discover more knowledge. And so my training I'm trained in baking and pastry. And so I've always been passionate about baking. And so that's where my training started. But then once I got that, then I sought more training and more and more. And because, like I said, it's ever evolving, so many nuances.
Yeah.
So I notice I'm a forever learner. I'm a lifelong learner. I will always learn. And every time I learn something new, I want to share it with someone else.
That's good. That's good. That's good. What do you think about people that learn a lot but don't want to share it? What kind of people are those people?
I don't really understand those people.
Like, is there a lot of those people, or are those like not many people are like that?
There are those people, but I don't understand those people because I don't understand why you're learning what you're learning if you're not willing to share that.
I think I understand.
All right, so
Here we go.
share.
I noticed this at jobs, but like sometimes let's just say you're at a job and then the person above you, they could actually teach you their job.
Right.
To make you, more informative and be a better employee, and whenever they're not there, that you can do it. But like it seems like sometimes when some people are above you, or they don't want to show you because they feel insecure or threatened that you might take their job.
Yeah.
Or come close. They like to feel like, hey, you guys need me,
Right.
Because I have
They want to be valuable.
this knowledge, and if I give it out to everybody, then I'm not going to be needed as much or at all.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like, I think people are afraid of that. Do you think that's
Competition.
That's a
make sense?
scarcity mindset to me.
That's insecurity.
It's insecurity, but it's primarily a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
It's a mindset where you think that there isn't enough to go around. But there's more than enough to go around. There's enough.
That's the way the world works, yeah.
Yeah, there's more than enough to go around. There is. I could teach you, and then you take what you've learned from me.
Put your flavor in it.
And then it's like recipes. People be like, "Oh, I'm not giving out my recipe. That's my recipe." No two people will ever make one recipe the same.
That's true.
It will never be the same. I could have the exact same recipe and give you the same recipe and you the same recipe. We all make that recipe, and none of our recipes will taste alike.
So what do you think about secret recipes? You think that's nonsense?
It's definitely nonsense.
But like,
I think people who have
Colonel
secret
Sanders'
recipes-
11 herbs and spices secret recipe for KFC is nonsense. Because you could tell me, like I could say, oh, okay. Downstairs is half a teaspoon of this, half a teaspoon of that, a teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of pepper, this, and this. When you look at these blogs out here and everybody's writing these recipes, they're writing that recipe for their taste buds.
right.
I told my student years ago, I said, the recipe that you have in front of you is a guide. It is a roadmap. It is not the Bible, and it is not the be-all and end-all of everything. You make this recipe as it is stated. Why do you think you can't get a copyright on a recipe? You know that, right? No recipe can be copywritten.
We didn't know that.
You can get a trademark for something, but recipes are not copywritten. That's why they call them secret recipes, because they can't copyright them.
Oh, so
They're not. There's no secret.
but hold on. KFC there's this
They have their formula. They have a formula
right.
that they've
But-
never really given out, and people have come close, but it's their interpretation on it.
Right.
So your recipe might say a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of pepper, a quarter teaspoon of nutmeg, a half a teaspoon of oregano, thyme, and rosemary. Blend, toss in my flour mixture, season my chicken with salt and pepper, dredge, and go. Okay, I bite it. This tastes like trash. It don't have enough salt for me. It doesn't
Right.
have enough depth for me. I like my fried chicken marinated in hot sauce and buttermilk.
Right.
You start to change things based on your taste buds.
Right.
So
Spicy
when
or-
I taste it, that's why I tell my students all the time, you taste as you go. We never just make a recipe and be like, here you go.
Because you don't know, yeah.
You don't know what that tastes like. It's going to fall flat. Think about your audience. Who's eating this? Are they going to like this?
Right. Are they into spicy food? Are they into black
So,
food?
so let me ask you, between black people, white people, Spanish people, whatever, do you know like the typical what type of taste you would do by the race of the person?
By your audience?
By your audience?
Yeah, because they say-
you do. I do think Caucasian people tend to veer more towards a subtle palette of food, not a lot of spice.
Right.
Definitely no heat. Latin,
Mucho caliente.
yeah, they like a lot of heat. The more heat, the better. Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
And then you've got African American people. They like a little bit of heat,
But flavor.
but they like a lot of flavor. So, and people think sometimes equate heat to flavor. Heat and flavor are not the same thing. Salt and pepper are not flavor. Salt is an enhancer of flavor, but it is not of seasoning.
What about seasoning salt?
It's not a seasoning. It's not. It's just salt. I honestly, with some paprika and some other stuff in it.
It's more flavorful than regular salt.
Yeah, it's more flavorful, but you can't control it in the same way you control white salt, table salt, pink Himalayan salt, salt.
That's just salt.
Regular salt.
Is there a difference between, because we have both salt and pink Himalayan salt, is there
where it comes from?
Right, but are they both equally as good or bad?
Salt is salt for you.
I think
What about
one's supposed
sea
to be
salt?
healthier.
Salt, the same, salt.
Sea salt is the same
As far as
other
taste,
salt.
it tastes the same, but it's just supposed to be healthier, supposedly.
There's no health.
No?
Salt is salt, okay? Salt is
why
salt.
they're messing around?
Iodized salt, which is what most people, which is your table salt.
Right?
The difference between that and anything else is that it has iodine added to it and has been ground finer. So it tends to be saltier quicker.
Oh, okay.
The reason why pink Himalayan salt, kosher salt, sea salt, coarser salts get a better terms of health benefits is because you don't need as much salt to achieve the same saltiness that you would from a finer salt.
Okay, so it's just salt, though.
All salt is just salt.
So someone's saying, "Oh, I eat sea salt because it's healthier for you." That does
It
not
just
true.
means they're having less salt.
Bullshit.
It's healthier because it's less salt.
It's less salt.
Oh, okay. So it is better.
It's better
Okay, because it's less salt.
because it's less.
But if you think about it, and I take 1/4 teaspoon of coarse sea salt, and then I take a 1/4 teaspoon of just fine sea salt. If I grind that 1/4 teaspoon of coarse sea salt down, I'm probably going to get the same amount in that 1/4 teaspoon of fine. But it's now the saltiness of it is way more pronounced.
Right.
Now, I'm using the coarse in my cooking because I want that impact of that salt bite. But I'm using the fine in my baking because I want it to disappear and dissolve and go away.
Got it.
Okay?
Gotcha. Very good, Rosie.
Very interesting.
Rosie giving us this historical education. But I never really paid attention to all the details of what you're talking about. But that's why you're going to be coming over more often to educate us, because we're students and we enjoyed what you cooked for us today. And maybe next time we can do because I know you mentioned that the African, how people consider, oh, this is Southern food, but it derives from an African heritage, right?
All food. I don't think honestly, there are very few places I think in this world that have not been touched by African culture. If you think about the way as pervasive as the transatlantic slave trade was, and the way all the countries who owned slaves, they took people from their indigenous lands and spread them to another area and forced them to thrive or survive. In that process, they took little bits of their homeland with them and tried to recreate it the best of their abilities. So things that you think about here that are traditionally Southern come from Africa, specifically West Africa, because that's where that slave trade, departed from. But like watermelons and okra and rice and all of these things, they stowed away small little seeds and grains, or they went over there and they got all those things and tried to make it last on the voyage over, and then began planting them. And those crops started to flourish in those climates that were most like where they came from, which is the South. As such, we now have what we know as Southern food, or what used to be known as soul food, because once again, until it became popularized, it was deemed as less than. It wasn't traditional. No one was infusing it with French culinary techniques or cuisine or things like that. So it wasn't elevated and it didn't have all these nuances to it. It was just a lot of, soups and stews and stocks but as you begin to finesse and make that food more refined, you realize that that culture is still there.
When I think of, and you're good with history, so that's why I'm asking you this question, but Cajun food in Louisiana is associated with each other or whatever.
It's French and African.
Do you know how that became that way in Louisiana?
Yeah.
Can you please share that with us? Because when I hear French, because I grew up in Montreal, Canada, I spoke French, and it's a French place. But when they say Louisiana is French, I was just, we went one time, but I don't know much about the culture and how people feel that's French.
Louisiana was a French territory. So at that point, when people look at the map of the United States and you look at it and you think about colonialism and all of that, when we're still talking about colonizers coming over, we had our French colonizers, we have our Spanish colonizers, and then we had our other European colonizers. The French and Spanish came through the Caribbean up, and then they went into like Louisiana area and stuff like that. Texas was actually still part of Mexico at that time. Texas was not considered any of those. That was still Mexican territory, which made it Spanish. And Spanish colonizers had that along with Mexico and all of that. French had Louisiana and I think a part of Florida. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But the French had that. That's why that French influence you see off of that Gulf coastline is really right there in those Caribbean areas because they left the Caribbean and went there. So then you have, when you look at Louisiana, you have Creole and Cajun. There's two different types of cuisine, but Creole, they, like Canada, are more associated with, the more French style and more lighter side of the spectrum.
Okay.
While the Cajun are more, there was a lot of Indians at that time and Native Americans rather in that area as well too.
Okay.
And so all of that influence came together. The Africans, the Native Americans, and the French is what make up that Louisiana Cajun Creole cuisine.
Okay.
We appreciate it very much.
No, that's good. That's good. Because I was, just because you're good with history and we were talking about food. So when I think of Louisiana, I think of Popeyes and chicken and that spicy Cajun. Mm-hmm. I think Cajun is associated with Louisiana for some reason.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, Cajun is associated with Louisiana.
You know what I'm saying? Like anything Cajun, you think
Cajun sauce,
Cajun
New Orleans, spices.
Yeah.
But
if you ask them, they will say there's a very fine line. It usually lies in the use of tomato. It's from what I researched and was like, Creole, they don't use as much. Cajun uses more, and but they all still have the same baselines, and the level of spice is a little bit different. Creole is not as spicy as Cajun.
Right, Cajun is known for a little bit of a
and
kick.
if you haven't seen or read High on the Hog, I highly recommend it. It is an excellent book.
High on the Hog?
Mm-hmm. The book itself, I have it on Audible. I watched the series on Netflix, and it's it's just a really tremendous book about the history of the Black foodways and where it's come from, how it evolved, and all that there is to where we are today.
I like that. I like that Netflix has all these type of... Netflix has got a lot of good things to watch. There's just too many things. But when it's recommended, that means we could watch it.
I could never choose, ever.
I want to ask you about one, since we're on Netflix, and before we get out of here, I want to know about The Bear.
That's on Hulu.
It's on Hulu.
Oh,
It's on
Hulu.
Hulu.
Okay, so tell us about that one. It's an 8-part series. What is it? First of all, did you enjoy it?
Oh, I loved it. It was a great show.
Oh, lines mean either she really loves
She's
it or
passionate.
she really doesn't. Oh, it's just passion.
just passion.
Those lines are passion,
Right.
folks.
So if she's
Do not
saying
get scared by the
something
lines.
that sounds like she's upset, it's going
You
to
know
come
what?
out.
I'm glad you
The
said
passion
that.
behind
It's
that.
passion. It's not anger or happiness. It's just
passion.
passion, right
Yeah.
down the middle.
Yeah,
Tell
I
us
really
about The
loved
Bear.
it. I thought it was a great show, and it had so many layers to it, and maybe it was a little bit of my paying homage to being from Michigan and Chicago being not too far from where I'm from, like just 2 hours away. Like I got it, and there's a different mentality.
And it has
to
to do with chefing, cooking, or whatever, right?
Oh yeah, The Bear. Sorry.
I don't know. Like,
The series is about a young chef, a young fine dining chef, as a matter of fact.
is he fine dine like he's fine, or is just fine dine? Is that
Fine
a little bit of
dining
both.
is a style of food.
just check it? I don't know. Maybe you were
So
telling us.
you have, and when we talk about food service, we have fast food, we have quick service food, we have fast casual, and then you start to elevate up into fine dining. Fine dining is going to be your types of restaurants like the French Laundry and Per Se, and really high-end restaurants where they pick garnishes off with tweezers and put them on your plate little by little, one by one.
It's a lot of work.
So he comes from...
It costs a lot of money to eat there.
Yeah, usually it costs a lot of money. So he comes from this type of restaurant background, but he's a humble kid from Chicago. And his brother committed suicide, and he inherited the restaurant. So
Don't give it away, though.
I don't want to give it away, so I can't tell you too
I don't know if
much.
The viewers want to see it.
Okay.
But it is a really good show. From what I understand, it's already been greenlit for season 2. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about, the behind the scenes of restaurant business and working in a kitchen, it'll give you that, but it doesn't make you feel stupid either, because it's literally explaining it step by step for you too.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Rozzy, we're going to wrap this up, and we appreciate you cooking for us today, sharing your thoughts, your views, your future. You educated us on a lot of things, and we're looking forward to you coming back over and maybe doing one of your African...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're looking to get involved in everything you're doing because we want to learn.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know if you wanted to, before we get out, talk about maybe your next 6-episode series coming out, or opportunities, or any type of social medias you want to shout out.
Anything you want to plug.
Anything you want to?
Actually, I do have a new 6-course dining series that will be on November the 20th.
Okay.
It's a Sunday. The dining event is a brunch, and the proceeds to that brunch, a portion of the proceeds from that brunch will benefit Bonton Farms. If you are not familiar with Bonton Farms, they are a urban farm located within South Dallas, right off of, not too far off of 45 near Fair Park, where they provide skills and training and education to that community, which is a food desert, and also offer a sustainable, healthy source of food within that neighborhood. They have the urban farm, which was their original, which is in the Bonton neighborhood, and they have a new annex farm, which is a little bit outside of Dallas, where they are doing even larger. They have 100 acres out there.
100.
And they are doing really good things. And, just a portion of proceeds from my dinner will help give back to that organization that does a lot of good in the hood.
I like it. Giving back.
All right.
Educating, giving back, making an impact.
Do you want to plug any of your social media?
Yeah, if you want to.
Where can we find more of you?
You can find me on Instagram at Roslind Renee, and that's ROSILIND, Renee, RENEE. And you can also find me on Facebook at the left-handed baker.tx. And I'm also on Instagram at the left-handed baker.tx.
Okay, all right. Very good. And you, darling, you want to plug anything?
Sure. If you like some of my art, you could see my Instagram on Amateur Art by Lee.
And for me, it's I Am Rodism on YouTube and Apple Podcast and Spotify. You get to see the interviews and you get to see the guests on YouTube. I Am Rodism. All right. So we are out of here. Thank you, Rosalind, for coming through and sharing.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Everybody take care.
Bye.
Bye.